Take a seat, man. So you're Julius's new boy, huh? You don't look like much. Then again, I don't look like I have an 8-inch cock, so I guess we're both full of surprises.
Man, I love Saints Row 1. And replaying it kind of reminded me of the old days, back in 2006, 2007, the 7th generation of consoles, the PlayStation 3 versus the Xbox 360. Saints Row 1 was a 360 exclusive, and for a while it seemed like almost every game was an Xbox exclusive, and the PlayStation had nothing. What did they have? MotorStorm, and that was pretty much it for the first couple of years. Yeah, the Xbox 360 was on fire the first few years of its life cycle, and it didn't seem like the PlayStation had much to compete with it. But then something happened halfway through the life cycle of the 7th gen consoles. Sony was just coming up with all these exclusives. You had Little Big Planet, Metal Gear Solid, Infamous, Ratchet and Clank, so many amazing games that we got on the PlayStation 3. And the reason why those games existed was because Sony were getting their asses kicked by Microsoft. So they had to keep pumping out all these amazing exclusives in order to stay competitive. And we got amazing games during the 7th gen as a result of this competition. Yes, the console war between the PlayStation 3 and the Xbox 360 was fierce. It was aggressive, it was brutal, but it was also a great thing for the consumer because we actually had two amazing choices. And some of us, like me, we decided to go with both consoles because they were both just too amazing to only have one and not the other. But even if you only had one of the consoles, let's say you only had a PS3 or you only had a 360, you didn't have both, still, you had one amazing console with a fantastic library of games. And of course, with the console wars, there's a lot of toxic shit going on, especially on the internet with the PS3 fanboys versus the Xbox 360 fanboys. There was always a flame war in the comment section on every YouTube video. But honestly, as toxic as it was, I found the console wars to be really fun back in the day. And these days, of course, the console wars are still going on. But honestly, I don't feel like it's the same energy as it was back then. And I'm going to try to explain that. But, I mean, you think of the console wars, the PS3 versus 360. How about the Super Nintendo versus Sega Genesis? That was another fierce console war. And as a result, we had so many fantastic games. Genesis does what Nintendo don't. We had those fierce ad campaigns, Nintendo and Sega going against each other. But you also had the games to show for it. And that was the same thing for the PS3 and 360. People actually had something to fight for back then, were those two particular console wars, because those were definitely the most competitive in the history of console gaming. But I think there's a correlation between that fierce competition and the quality of games that we had, especially with the 16-bit era. That's considered the golden age of gaming for most people. And that's because competition, as fierce as it was, it brought the best out of the industry. We had so many fantastic games back then, not only on the Super Nintendo, but the Genesis as well, because Sega wanted to take market share from Nintendo, and the same thing happened with the PS3 versus 360. The first few years, it was so fucking lopsided, it was crazy. I mean, the PlayStation 3 was not looking very good, but Sony had to respond because they knew they were in a very dire situation, so they fought back, and they fought back hard. And as a result, we had so many amazing games. So compare that to the console wars we have now, where they're fighting over petty bullshit like graphics, which console is more powerful than the other. And of course, when we're talking about which console is more powerful, it's very marginal. Like in the grand scheme of things, okay, maybe like it runs a little bit faster and a little bit better, but it's so minor, it's so minuscule that it doesn't really have much of a difference on the enjoyment of the game on the PS5 versus Series X, because you had all those Xbox fanboys. I mean, they're still damage controlling, by the way. They remember how much over all the months that we've had these the news with the PlayStation 5 and the Series X and the build up towards the launch of those consoles. You had the Xbox fanboys going hard about how the Series X is the most powerful console on the market, and of course Phil Spencer was spouting that shit, and they were all fucking creaming their pants over that. But then it turns out that all the big AAA third-party games so far run better on the PlayStation 5 than the Series X. And I just find that fucking hilarious. What I find even more hilarious is that, yeah, the thing that they're arguing about right now is not the games, because there are no fucking games, of course, because it's early on, and being an early adopter, you don't really get shit. So these fanboys are arguing about graphics. So I'm sorry, but if you really care about having the best graphics and having the best performance, you're on the wrong platform. You have no business getting into console gaming. You're better off getting one of those RTX 3000 cards. If that's really something that you're serious about, that you care so much about, that you'd buy one console over the other because one is slightly more powerful than the other. Well, if you really care so much about power, then you better go off and get a PC. Yeah, I think it's pretty fucking sad that the modern day console war is not about which platform has better games, it's about which platform has more teraflops and faster SSDs. Yeah, that's pretty fucking pathetic. Or how about the last generation, the 8th generation, between the PlayStation 4 and Xbox One? You also had that shit too. Remember where games were running like 900p 60 FPS on the PlayStation 4, but they were running 720p 60 FPS on the Xbox One? That, like, the fanboys were going crazy about that, about how games ran better on the PlayStation 4, but they still run like shit on both consoles. I mean, even for 2013 standards, the PS4 and Xbox One were very underpowered, and they both ran like shit. Okay, one console may have ran games less shitty, but it was still shit. But again, like, the fixation on graphics, I don't understand. That's a thing that we didn't really have back then, but we're starting to get now, and I just don't get it. And it's definitely gotten worse over time. With the 9th generation consoles, people are even more fixated on graphics than they were before. Like, get a fucking PC! What are you doing? Get a PC if you care about graphics so much. Oh my god, I don't get that. But with the 8th gen, it's pretty fucking sad that Sony won an entire generation from a 20-second instruction video on how to play used games, and it's literally just the two guys trading games with each other compared, to the Xbox One's DRM policy that they reversed later on, but the damage was done. But Microsoft didn't even try to fight back as hard as Sony did when Microsoft was kicking their asses in the 7th gen. Microsoft didn't even fucking try. Where were the games? There's still no games on the Xbox One. I spent most of my playtime on the Xbox One playing Xbox 360 games because that was their big thing. Oh, we have backwards compatibility. Well, that's great. Don't get me wrong. I love backwards compatibility, but would that be the only fucking thing you have? Where are the actual new games? They have nothing. They had nothing. What do they have? Crackdown 3, the broken MCC they took, 3 years to fix? Or it's still not even completely fixed at this point. Like, there's still some issues with that. Yeah. The 8th generation was pretty pathetic overall. Even Sony, they had these amazing games, but they all play the exact fucking same. They're all third-person action games with the stealth elements put in. Like, they all played the exact fucking same as each other. Like, come on, who are you fooling? Yeah, they had these exclusive games, but they didn't even have to fucking try. Like, if you think that it was neck and neck in the 8th gen, like it was in the 7th gen, that Sony would have put the exact same games they did, of course they would have tried a little bit harder. And that's what I miss about the console wars back then, is that the fanboys actually had something to fight for. Now these days, they're arguing about which console is the least shitty. Like, is this politics now? We're arguing about which side is the least shit? Because that's what it was with the 8th gen. The PS4 exclusives are only good in comparison to having fucking nothing on the Xbox One. But the PS3 exclusives, you actually had a variety of different games to choose from different genres. But the PS4, it was all the same cookie-cutter shit. And I miss what the console wars used to be, what they used to stand for, because, yeah, I mean, there was obviously some toxic shit going on during the 7th gen and during the 4th gen with the fanboys going at each other like crazy. And yeah, it was a little bit too much. But at least back then, they had something to argue about. They actually had an argument. Oh, look at our games on the PlayStation 3. Oh, look at Xbox 360. I mean, Gears of War versus Uncharted. I mean, that was like, they were pretty much neck and neck, the games that we had on both of those consoles. But now these days, it's like stupid arguments about one console being slightly more powerful than the other, or the other console having better games, but it's really that the other console doesn't have any games to offer, so in comparison, oh, it's so great, but that's because Microsoft didn't even bother to compete. They were too busy building up this shitty subscription service, also known as Game Pass, and that's the funny thing. People are arguing about subscription services more than the actual quality of the games. They're arguing about quantity. Oh, you pay $15 a month and you get all this shit. But that's exactly what it is. Shit. Now, honestly, fuck the modern era of gaming where everything is being sold to you as a service. Fuck that garbage. But yeah, I have no idea what happened to console gaming, because these days, I just don't think there's any point in owning a console anymore. Because on PC, you have plenty of games that you can't play on console, and they're from a wide variety of genres. You have FPS games, third-person action games, like the fucking only thing we get on consoles these days, third-person action games. You got plenty of that on PC, but you also have platformers, you have role-playing games, strategy games, racing games, puzzle games, so many different games and so many genre of games to choose from. But on PlayStation, it's the same shit. third-person action games, no variety, paid online bullshit, you have to pay an annual subscription or to play online multiplayer, which is such a basic feature in not just 2020, but fucking 2000. You know what I mean? Fuck that. Online multiplayer is free on PC. And the thing I find the most hilarious are the modern-day console fanboys being so obsessed and so fixated on graphics and performance. It's really sad what console gaming has become. It's fallen down so much over the past decade, at least. So I have no choice but to stick with my PC. I'm never gonna get a console anytime soon. Probably never. I don't have any plans to get in the PS5 or the Series X because there's nothing that these consoles offer that I can't do on my PC. But I pretty much said everything I want to say in this video. I'm not going to drag it on any longer. Let me know what you guys think in the comments down below if you agree or disagree with the points I've made in this video. I'll always love to hear what you guys have to say. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you guys later. Bye.